From the beginning of the federal drug and alcohol testing program in 1991, right up until 2020, there was a gap in commercial highway safety. The weakness was not in the testing itself. Laboratory standards, collection procedures, and medical reviews were all heavily regulated and strictly consistent. The vulnerability was in what happened after a violation occurred. When a commercial driver failed a test, they were immediately removed from safety-sensitive duties. To drive again, they had to navigate a mandatory return-to-duty process, which required clinical evaluation, treatment, and follow-up testing. But a driver wanting to avoid rehabilitation could simply walk away. They could abandon the return-to-duty process, quit their current job, and quietly apply for a position with a different carrier down the road, slipping into a regulatory blind spot. The new employer was legally required to check the applicant's history. But that verification process relied on the driver accurately listing their past employers on paper, and it depended on previous companies actually answering the phone and providing accurate records. Every manual step in that chain was an opportunity for the truth to get lost. Drivers actively exploited these failure points. They would vanish from Carrier A's paperwork and seamlessly attach to Carrier B's payroll. As a result, individuals legally prohibited from operating heavy commercial vehicles routinely infiltrated completely unaware fleets. Because the regulatory system assumed dishonest actors would accurately self-report their own violations, the federal prohibition existed strictly on paper. Out on the interstate, it offered zero protection to the public. Recognizing the danger, Congress intervened, directing the Department of Transportation to build a centralized solution under the MAP 21 Act. The result was the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, the secure database that went live on January 6, 2020. Every commercial driver's license holder has a record in this system, tracking them in real time under one of two statuses: not prohibited or prohibited. To prevent manipulation, the architecture depends on multiple distinct entities to report data. No single person controls a driver's record. Employers report refusals to test or actual knowledge of violations. Medical review officers directly report verified positive test results. Together, these entries instantly switch a driver's status to prohibited. Once a violation is locked, independent professionals step in to report on the driver's required treatment, guaranteeing that rehabilitation actually happens before the prohibition is lifted. By replacing paper trails and phone calls with verifiable data, the clearinghouse successfully closed the loophole between employers, but a separate vulnerability remained. A driver could be federally barred from driving, yet continue to carry a physical, state-issued license that appeared completely valid during a roadside inspection. The federal prohibition lived in an online database. Because it wasn't embedded in the physical plastic credential, local law enforcement often couldn't see the restriction. To bridge this jurisdictional gap, FMCSA rolled out the second clearinghouse final rule, taking effect in November 2024. This mandate dictates that state licensing agencies must constantly monitor the federal database for changes to a driver's status. The moment a driver receives a prohibited flag, FMCSA pushes a real-time alert to the state. The state then has a strict 60-day window to initiate a downgrade process. Commercial driving privileges are physically stripped from the license. Prohibited drivers are also entirely blocked from renewing, upgrading, or obtaining a commercial learner's permit. By permanently tying federal safety status directly to the physical credential a driver carries, Clearinghouse 2 created a unified barrier against uncertified operators. Today, the system manages records for 5 million registered drivers and processes tens of millions of queries. Its authority rests entirely on the absolute accuracy of that data. When individuals realized they could no longer outrun the database, they began attempting to breach it from within. Investigative reporting across 2025 and early 2026 exposed a network of uncredentialed actors posing as substance abuse professionals. They infiltrated the system to inject fraudulent return-to-duty clearances into the federal record. In April 2026, the Department of Transportation pushed back. They mandated strict new identity checks for clearinghouse registrants, a direct measure designed to purge fake clinicians from the portal. A centralized enforcement tool requires continuous adaptation. It must actively defend its entry points against those trying to compromise the data. For the driver, the requirements of rehabilitation remain identical to the original 1991 rules. What has changed is transparency. Drivers can check their own profiles at any time, keeping their exact legal status visible to themselves and to any carrier looking to hire them. Even after completing the return to duty process, a resolved violation remains on the record for 5 years, leaving a clear trail of accountability. The commercial driving industry has transitioned from relying on fragmented paper records to a digitized network directly integrated with state motor vehicle departments. The blind spots have been illuminated. When you share the road with an 80,000-pound truck today, the clearinghouse ensures the person behind the wheel has definitively earned the right to be there.